In case you haven't heard, Pikmin 3 Deluxe is coming in the Nintendo Switch for $60, even though it's currently in Nintendo Selects on the Wii U eShop for $20. But if you ask me, I've got absolutely no problem with the updated version costing $60, since nobody'd be forced to buy it or anything like that. But the fact that Nintendo went out of their way to take the $20 version down from the Wii U's eShop right after the Switch version was announced is something that I don't think anybody can defend as being anything other than scummy. And it'd be one thing if Nintendo would at least gain something from the shady tactic, but the worst part about it is that I actually think that this only hurts the above average sized end. So sit back in your dad's favorite beanbag, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, the world's most successful bull milker, CameronAllOneWord, to tell you how Nintendo removing Pikmin 3 from the Wii U's eShop hurts way more than it could ever possibly help. Alright, so I think that most of us would agree that it's shady for Nintendo to take the cheaper versions of Switch ports down from the Wii U's eShop, but for whatever reason, I'm pretty sure that some people are still gonna call me a Sony fan man or whatever for calling it like I see it, so I kinda feel like I need to explain in a little bit of detail as to why this is wrong, and to sum it up as quickly as possible, it's basically because Nintendo's completely given the middle finger to the Wii U and everybody who ever bought one. And look, we've all made fun of the fact that only like 27 people ever bought a Wii U, so I know it seems unimaginable that there'd somehow be one human being out there who saw Pikmin 3 on the Switch and decided that they wanted to buy the game on the Wii U, but don't forget that there's still people out there who buy Just Dance 2020 on the friggin' Wii, so it's definitely not impossible that some rogue Wii U owner out there stumbled upon a Pikmin 3 Deluxe trailer and either remembered or even discovered that the game was on the Wii U and decided to buy it on the eShop. But for Nintendo, it's just not good enough that someone wants to buy one of their games directly, because they'd rather this person spend an extra $40 on the Switch version and possibly even buy an entirely new console, and at a time where they're hard to find, no less. Some people might say that this isn't that big of a deal since people like this are probably extraordinarily rare if they even exist at all, but the idea of Nintendo giving the middle finger to even just one person who supported them when nobody else would just kinda sucks. And besides, it pretty much confirms that they don't believe that the improvements made in Pikmin 3 Deluxe truly justify the $60 price tag, otherwise they would've just left the original game on the Wii U's eShop at $20 and dared people to buy what's supposedly the inferior version. I mean, just look at Persona 5 Royal. That game made improvements to the original Persona 5, but it's still more or less the same game, and you didn't see Atlus or Sega trying to take that down from the PlayStation Store on the PS3 or 4. And if there were ever an appropriate time to remove a cheaper and inferior version of a game, then that would have been the time to do it, since Royal pretty much retcons parts of the story from the original game, and that's a case where I personally know of many people buying the original version just to save $40, and that tells me that Atlus truly believes that Royal really is worth 40 extra bucks. But even if they didn't, it still would have been incredibly stupid for them to take the digital version of the base game off of the PlayStation Store, but that's exactly what Nintendo did with Pikmin 3, so now if somebody really wants to buy the Wii U version for any reason at all, then they can still just buy a used physical copy, which Nintendo wouldn't make a penny off of, and even if somebody really wanted the digital version, then they could still just buy a code from retailers for $20, who Nintendo'd have to split the profits with. So really, what do you think's gonna happen if a Wii U owner really wants to buy Pikmin 3? I mean, do you think they're gonna see that it's not in the eShop and immediately give up all hope and buy the Switch version? Well, if they thought about it for about half a second, then of course they wouldn't. They'd either find another way, or be put off by how shady the tactic is and decide not to buy the game at all. So on top of being a bad ethical decision, it's also just plain bad for business, because not only does Nintendo lose money to the used games market and retailers that they would have gotten to keep through eShop sales, but they also lost a little bit of goodwill among many of their fans as well, regardless of whether or not they ever had any intentions of buying the Wii U version in the first place. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I've got no problem with Nintendo charging $60 for Wii U ports though, especially when they enhance these games, but if you're one of those people who does get mad over this, then I think you should blame the people who buy these games for $60 rather than Nintendo for offering them, because if people consensually accept this deal for a non-essential entertainment product that serves no practical use outside of fun, then I don't necessarily think that Nintendo's evil for doing it, even though it would have been nice if they'd priced some of them at like 30 or 40 bucks. And look, I'm well aware that now some other people are gonna call me a Nintendo fan man for saying that, but even though I had no problem with New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe costing $60, I personally thought it was a complete ripoff, so I just skipped out on the game entirely and haven't lost any sleep over it ever since. But even though I felt that way, meanwhile, there's 5 million other people who knew exactly what the game was and went ahead and bought the bundle anyway, and I'd imagine that they did so because they either never owned a Wii U in the first place, or they just had some extra money to spare and didn't mind paying. Although, with all that being said, it was still a bit of a dick move for them to charge $60 for Tropical Freeze when the original game was only $50 on the Wii U. I mean, yeah, they gave us Funky Kong, I guess, but it was still a dick move. So trust me, I'm definitely not trying to completely bury Nintendo forever and ever until the end of time by calling them out for their Pikmin scam, because I've definitely defended them quite a few times over some unpopular decisions they've made in the past. But like I said, I've got to call it like I see it, and taking cheaper versions of games like Pikmin 3, New Super Mario Bros. U, and Tropical Freeze off of the Wii U's eShop is just plain shady if you ask me, and it's for reasons like this that I don't want to live in a world where video games can only be bought digitally. But as for Pikmin 3 Deluxe itself goes, though, I wouldn't necessarily say that you shouldn't buy it if you've never played it, especially if you never owned a Wii U in the first place. I mean, the base version of the game's my personal favorite in the entire series, and for the amount of fun that you'd get out of it, plus all the updates and portability, it's honestly worth $60. And I'd even go one step further and say that I hope the game finally sells well now that it's on a console that people actually own, so that Nintendo will see the Pikmin franchise as profitable and worthy of making new games for. But as for me personally, I'm probably gonna sit this one out since I already have an insane backlog of games as it is, and I've already played the original. Plus, if I'm being honest, I actually liked using the Wii U gamepad to set paths for my characters, and I also liked using the pointer controls of the Wii remote. Yeah, I know there's gonna be a lock-on feature, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna be able to use the gyro controls and the Joy-Cons, but let's just say I'm a little bit skeptical that it'll control as good as the Wii U version did. At least good enough to justify spending $60 on a game I've already played before anyway. But anyway, what do you think? Is Nintendo shady for taking Pikmin 3 off of the Wii U's eShop? Are they shady for pricing the Switch version of the game at $60 in the first place? Or do you think that Nintendo can do no wrong whatsoever? Either way, let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, I'll try my goddamnedest to respond to everybody at some point. But let me tell you, if there's two people who don't need deluxe versions at all, then it would definitely be today's patrons of the day, Waifu and Austin Garcia. If you want to be badasses like these two, then consider supporting FU Game Crew on Patreon for loot boxes and silly rewards in the mail. Send pictures or videos of you rocking merch if you want to make cameos in my videos, and follow me on Twitch if you ever want to hang out whenever I play video games sometimes. My name's CameronAllOneWord, and I'll see you next time.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.